So let me ask you this:
Sure.
you got background in Christianity.
Yes, sir.
Got brothers who
Yes, sir.
are preachers. Man, I know. I would love to be a fly on the wall in those Thanksgiving dinners.
Schools. That's what everybody say. Who's gonna lead the prayer?
Right, exactly. I would love to be there.
Ecumenical prayers, brother.
It's interesting. My cousin's grandpa, he's Muslim and
Really?
has kids who are Muslim, some Christian, like the mom is Christian. So it's a
Nice
it's
mix.
split, right? Yeah, it's a mix. And so the Thanksgiving is always fun.
You know,
it really is.
Mama, can I eat this? You know, I can't eat this.
Is this halal? You know,
baby, stay away from them greens. You know what I mean? So, no, we've had those fun things, but Logic, because we're on the interview. I know it's Avery also, but Logic. The life I came from, right? The life I chose before becoming Muslim was filled with so much chaos that my brothers are just happy it's not that chaotic life. So, when many of the people who come to Islam coming out of prisons, it's not a theological, in-depth awakening as much as it is a system that has helped them be better human beings.
I see.
And so that's, my grandmother, she said, my mother was like, he believe in that Allah stuff, right?
That Allah stuff.
Yeah, and my grandmother, who probably had a third grade education, she said, do we believe in God? And she said, yes. She said, that's enough. And just her simple understanding was what, I hope most of my interactions it gets down to that basic statement, and I don't want to, let a preacher get up here, a preacher will talk, but I got so many, I'm 55. So my friend was buried, Eric Chester, Thursday. He had come home from prison. He went at 15. He came home at 32. His mother and father are Christian preachers, right? And he told his friends, make sure I'm buried as a Muslim. And that was a challenge for them, but they respected his last wishes, and they buried him as a Muslim. And then they had a memorial yesterday. I went to it. The preacher got up, and the first thing the preacher said was, Assalamu alaikum, right? And he was Baptist too. And then he said, all I know is that he loved God. Like he went to the most basic and fundamental, connecting piece instead of saying, he said he asked him one day, he said, Eric, when you coming back to the church? He said, Pastor, I'm Muslim, and they had this relationship, so
that's dope.
That's how I try to live.
Okay.
So
now let me ask you this then too. With that background.
Yes, sir.
How do you view Jesus?
My relationship with Jesus may have been influenced by my relationship prior to coming into Islam. All Muslims, we all say we love Jesus. Jesus is mentioned in the Quran a number of times, Isa and stuff, right? But I view him as the Quran has taught us to view him as a prophet, as a miraculous, born miraculously, born by a virgin mother, with miracles performed. So it's as the Quran has presented it to me, and I would just say with the love of somebody who was also Christian, So
how do you make that transition? Because obviously, as a Christian or with a biblical view of Jesus, is very high, right? It's not like, of course, he's the most loving and generous and caring, and he's just so wise. He knows how to handle himself in every situation. But he also had these claims about himself, or did things that we know no prophet could claim or do, unless it would be blasphemy.
Mm.
How do you make that transition, into like, I keep that love of Jesus and how he displayed himself, but then but he's just a prophet.
Hmm.
How do you make that transition?
Well, I think more than anything, just a prophet uh, will minimize that feeling if I said just a prophet, you know. But for me, um, it, it wasn't two things, I'll say.
Okay.
One, when I was raised in the Baptist church in Shreveport in the 70s, I, I keep trying to look back and I think about the message, and maybe it was the time period and the pastor himself, because I felt like he stayed in the Old Testament more than he did in the New.
Yeah,
And
I get that.
so uh, Easter came, and so we celebrated, but I don't know how attached I was even then to God or the Son of God as much as I was to this magnificent individual whom I read and when I went to Jerusalem, I was on at the Capernaum where the Beatitude, and I
Yeah.
could feel all of that peace, and I was connecting with it like a Christian and stuff, right? And feeling that. But I think a part of my transition, even though my brothers went their way, was I keep trying to look back and remember what Pastor and Dr. J.D. Thomas talked about. And it was these things that still resonate with me from the Old Testament, and even when in the New Testament, about character and about behavior. And those things, I think, spoke to me more than the person.